Hi Polo. Take a rest, because I promise you that this is the funniest abstract proposal you have received so far. My name is Martin Berg, and I'm a sociologist. Having worked at university for several years, I'm quite fed up with writing ordinary abstracts. Since I was about to submit an abstract for a conference organized by the International Visual Sociology Association, it felt rather natural to make it a visual one. One of the core ideas behind making use of visual media within a framework of sociology is that it has a potential to transgress and disrupt traditional boundaries. Doing visual sociology is a matter of exploring different manifestations of textuality. It is a way of communicating the unvoiced, of providing tacit knowledge with a voice of itself. In a sense, submitting an abstract is also a way of communicating thoughts that are not always completely elaborated. The abstract normally provides a firm 250-word body to an otherwise loosely held set of thoughts. So, wouldn't it be rather interesting to communicate an ongoing research project in this way? Rather than forcing the creative process into the mold of an ordinary abstract, it could open up for a different sort of scientific communication. I think that this is an important issue to reflect upon when it comes to understanding how we think, do and publish visual research. These questions lie at the heart of my current research project. I'll explain what I'm up to shortly. But, in order to understand the basic idea with my project, it is necessary to provide some sort of contextualization. I hold a PhD in sociology and I used to work as a senior lecturer. Fortunately, however, I received a research grant that enabled me to work with a 3-year research project. It is a special form of research grant since the research is supposed to be carried out at a company. So, even though I'm a research affiliate at Malmö University, I spend my days at a strategic web agency that is called Good Old. Working as a senior researcher in such an environment makes research take other forms than what is often the case at a university. At the office, it is commonplace to work with visual methodologies and to include visual material in the creative process. But what happens when a PhD in sociology drops down in such an environment? Quite a lot, I would say. My research project aims at understanding why people use social media and in what ways they make use of it. In a sense, I'm trying to figure out what sort of doings that characterizes social media and interaction on the web. Of course, this is a highly interesting issue from both an academic as well as a more business-minded perspective. Though it is an interesting subject, it is very hard to reach out to the internet community while at the same time keeping up with academic standards. I really do want to make it possible to work with the visual methodologies that my colleagues are used to. But at the same time I want to use sociological theory and methods in a challenging way. Combining these two worlds is indeed a thought-provoking venture. Then I came up with a great idea. Why should we even bother to write books and journal articles? Shouldn't it be possible to make use of different platforms when communicating research results? Said and done. We started to think of the possibilities to produce a book that isn't quite a book. Rather confusing. Yes, indeed. But I wanted to escape from the static boundaries of print media. It seemed quite bizarre to capture the complexities and fluidity of social media in such a medium. Making a text social involves the reader in a different way than what is the case with a printed text. It requires that the text can be divided in different layers, and it demands that the reader can interact with the text. Such a text would provide not only a challenging instability and multiplicity of meanings, it would also be very fun to partake in. The result of this thought process is called Socialcomics. And even if this is a work in progress, I would like to present it with a poster at the conference. Socialcomics can be divided into two different parts: research process and research dissemination. The basic idea with the research process is quite simple and it is performed in 4 steps. Firstly, a close reading of the 20 most important popular scientific texts on the subject of social media is performed. The idea is to capture important lines of thought in the discursive production of the field. Secondly, participant observation and qualitative interviews are performed in order to capture the meaning ascribed to using social media. Taken together, these two steps form the basis of an understanding of Internet doings. These doings are conceptualized in relation to sociological theories of late modernity, psychoanalysis, social psychology and contemporary media theory. Having carved out some basic doings of the Internet, a third step follows. We will work in close relation to artists, cartoonists, filmmakers and designers of different sort. They will be assigned the mission to interpret every single doing of the Internet. They will have one restriction, though. The Internet doings must be interpreted and visualized without making use of Internet in any form. So basically, they will provide a visual interpretation of the Internet. But without Internet. In a sense, we are dealing with a visual bracketing. Fourthly, these visual interpretations will be taken back into the research process. The idea is that they provide another empirical layer that facilitate an interpretation of fine nuances and shades of meaning. Okay, so what do we have here then? We have an understanding of the doings of Internet. An understanding that is based in a multi-layered qualitative research approach, as well as a visual interpretation that not only works as an illustration, but also lies at the core of the empirical material. This takes us to the research dissemination. As I said earlier, we want to do something different than an ordinary print text. Social comics is evidently not to be understood as comics in the usual sense. Rather, it is a question of facilitating a multi-layered reading. We will produce for the web, the iPad and the iPhone. At the first stage, at least. The idea is to let the reader dig deeper in the text. Every doing of the Internet will be represented by a set of visual interpretations, such as a comic strip, for instance. At this visual level, the reader will be able to do two different things. First of all, it is possible to get the whole picture relatively easily. It is a form of reading that leaves much of the interpretation to the reader. Secondly, the reader can interact with the text. By means of services like Twitter and Facebook Connect, the reader can place their own words in speech bubbles. Their words will be instantly visible to other readers and constantly changing. It is a way of capturing the ongoing buzz of the Internet, while at the same time providing an account of the instability of the text as such. As I mentioned earlier, the reader will be able to dig deeper in the text. By clicking on different objects and processes in the visual media, the reader is taken to a different level of reading. Firstly, the reader is taken to the level of popular scientific text. This level provides a possibility to a deeper study. Secondly, the reader is able to dig further down in the text. This level provides the academic text that is normally published in research journals and academic books. Taken together, these three levels make it possible to regard reading as a journey. It is a way of navigating from the pleasurable to the difficult, from the amusing to the serious. At every level, the readers will be able to interact with each other, in contrast to the possibility to place their own words inside the text. This function will provide the readers with a means to discuss the text and their interpretation of it. In consequence, reading social comics will itself be a multi-layered venture. Okay, Polo, this sounds rather fun, doesn't it? For sure, I hope you like the idea. And I'm looking forward to discussing my project with you and others at the conference later on this year. Please contact me if you have any questions or comments. See you later.